Who is breaking the integrity of Manipur? Written by Palmin Lin Haukip at Linen Legal Affairs, Kimmer. The state of Manipur, a land rich in cultural diversity and historical significance, has become a focal point of intense political, social, and ethnic turmoil. At the center of the crisis lies a series of actions taken by key political leaders and radicalized groups, all of which have led to a fracturing of the state's integrity. Among those held responsible are Shri Biren Singh, the Chief Minister of Manipur, Shri Lizamba Sanajoba, the Member of Parliament for Inner Manipur, and several radicalized factions such as Arambai Tengol, Meitei Lipon, UNLF, KCP, KYKL, Pre-PAC, PLA, and Meitei civil society organisations, SCSOs, like KOGMI, the World Meitei Council, the Federation of Halmi, the Kangay Lipak Kamba Loop, and Mera Pai Biz. These groups and leaders, with their radicalised ideologies, have played a significant role in contributing to the ongoing ethnic conflict in the state. Their actions have undermined the unity of Manipur by exacerbating tensions between the Meitei and Kuki communities. So, in this article, we will explore how and why these actions have taken place, the consequences of the ongoing conflict, and the critical need for a resolution that respects the rights and autonomy of the diverse ethnic groups that inhabit the state. We round the by. Manipur, a state in the northeastern region of India, has a rich history marked by multi-ethnic communities coexisting peacefully. However, over the years, this coexistence has been marred by increasing political tensions, discrimination, and marginalisation of certain communities. The Meitei community, predominantly concentrated in the Imphal Valley, has historically been the dominant ethnic group, both politically and culturally. On the other hand, the Kuki people, who predominantly inhabit the hilly areas of the state, have long felt sidelined in terms of governance, development, and social integration. The roots of the conflict between the Meitei and Kuki communities run deep, with a long history of perceived neglect, marginalisation, and exploitation. Despite being the indigenous tribal population of Manipur, the Kuki people have faced systematic discrimination in various spheres, from political representation to access to government services. The Meitei-dominated state government under the leadership of Biren Singh has been accused of exacerbating these issues, particularly through policies and actions that selectively benefit the Meitei community while neglecting the welfare of the Kuki people. The tensions between the two communities escalated further in recent years, culminating in the violent clashes that began in May 2023. These clashes, which have resulted in the loss of over 220 lives and the destruction of countless properties, have laid bare the fragile state of Manipur's integrity and its inability to maintain peace among its diverse communities. Aww. Story of La is an Ablasian romantic comedy based on. As the Chief Minister of Manipur, Biren Singh holds significant responsibility for the state's governance and the protection of its citizens. However, his tenure has been marked by actions that have primarily favoured the Meitei community, leading to accusations of partiality and injustice. Singh's policies, particularly in relation to land and forest management, have disproportionately affected Kuki people and fueled their grievances. One, selective governance and development. Despite being elected as the Chief Minister of a multi-ethnic state, Biren Singh has faced accusations of selectively serving the interests of the Meitei community. The development programs initiated by his government have been concentrated in Meitei majority areas, where the Kuki people predominantly reside, have been largely neglected. This selective approach has deepened the sense of alienation and resentment among the Kuki population, who feel excluded from the state's political and economic life. 22. Re-implementation of reserved forest laws. One of the most controversial actions taken by the state government has been the re-implementation of reserved forest laws in Kuki-dominated areas. These laws, which were first imposed during British colonial rule between 1927 and 1946, were aimed at generating revenue through forest management. However, they were applied arbitrarily and without due process, leading to the unjust confiscation of tribal lands. Since 2022, Biren Singh's government has selectively enforced these laws in the Kuki majority hill areas. The redeclaration of vast stretches of Kuki land as reserved forest or protected forest has sparked outrage among the tribal communities. These areas, which have been the ancestral homes of the Kuki people for generations, are now being reclassified under forest laws, effectively stripping the Kuki community of their rights to land and resources. 3. Forced evictions and land grabbing. The enforcement of reserved forest laws has led to the forced eviction of Kuki villages. In many cases, entire villages have been displaced to make way for tree plantations, wildlife sanctuaries, or other state-sponsored projects. The government has justified these actions as part of conservation efforts, but critics argue that they are part of a broader agenda to undermine the Kuki community's land rights and seize their ancestral land. Or promotion of poppy cultivation and the destination of Sikh farmers and sites for the Kuki people is the labelling of their land as sites for poppy cultivation. This accusation has been used as a justification for increased surveillance, military presence, and development of harsh policies aimed at controlling Kuki-dominated regions. Rather than addressing the root causes of poverty and underdevelopment in these areas, the government has instead focused on criminalising and stigmatising the Kuki people, thereby exacerbating tensions between the communities. 5. Hate speech and radicalised groups. Under Biren Singh's leadership, radicalised groups have been allowed to flourish, spreading hate speech and inciting violence against the Kuki people. Groups like Arambai Tengol and Me Te Lekun have gained significant traction promoting anti-Kuki rhetoric and stoking ethnic tensions. These groups have been given a free pass by the state government, which has led to an escalation in violence against Kuki settlements. The role of Meitei radicalised group. The Meitei radicalised groups have been instrumental in pushing forward the narrative of Meitei dominance and the marginalisation of the Kuki community. These groups, which include militant organisations such as the UNLF, KCP, KYKL, PRE-PAC and PLA, as well as various Meitei CSOs, have been vocal in their demands for a more centralised and Meitei-dominated state. Their actions, often violent and provocative, have contributed significantly to the breakdown of trust between the Meitei and Kabiyin communities. These groups have been responsible for organising protests, rallies and campaigns that promote Meitei supremacy and the subjugation of the Kuki people. Their rhetoric has often included calls for the removal of Kuki people from certain areas, as well as the establishment of a Meitei-dominated Greater Manipur. The consequences of the crisis, loss of life and property. The ongoing violence between the Meitei and Kuki communities has had devastating consequences. Since the outbreak of violence in May 2023, over 220 innocent Kuki lives have been lost and thousands of Kuki families have been displaced from their homes. Entire villages have been burned down and homes have been looted and destroyed. The financial toll of the violence is also significant, with properties worth crores of rupees being destroyed. This violence has not only disrupted the lives of the Kuki people, but has also shattered the multi-ethnic fabric of Manipur. The once peaceful coexistence between the various communities has been broken, and the state now finds itself divided along ethnic lines. The call for a separate Kuki administration. In light of the ongoing violence, marginalisation and land dispossession, the Kuki community has begun to call for the establishment of a separate administration. The demand for a separate Kuki region, possibly under a union territory with its own legislature, has gained traction as a viable solution to the ongoing conflict. This demand is not merely a reaction to the present crisis, but reflects the deep-seated grievances and historical injustices that the Kuki people have faced. The idea of creating two separate administrations, one for the Mete and one for the Kuki, is seen as the only way to ensure peace, security, and development for both communities. Oh. The demand for Kuki land or a separate Kuki Union territory is not a call for secession, but rather a plea for autonomy, self-governance, and the protection of Kuki land culture and rights. Such a move, proponents argue, would allow the Kuki people to safeguard their ancestral lands without interference from the Meitei-dominated state government. The partition analogy, a necessary separation. The proposal for a separate Kuki administration is often compared to the partition of India and Pakistan in 1947. Just as the partition was seen as a necessary step for peace and the protection of different communities, a separate Kuki administration is seen as the only way to avoid further bloodshed and ensure the future of the Kuki people. The creation of two distinct regions, Mete and Kuki, would allow each community to manage its affairs without fear of persecution or marginalization. This separation would not only protect the rights and land of the Kuki people, but would also allow the Mete community to focus on their own development and governance, free from the tensions and conflicts that have defined the relationship with the Kuki people. Calories again. The need for resolution and peace. The ongoing crisis in Manipur is a result of decades of marginalization, discrimination, and political mismanagement. The actions of Enbei Rain Singh and the Meitei radicalized groups have exacerbated these issues, leading to violence, loss of life, and a deepening divide between the Meitei and Cook communities. The integrity of Meitei, once a multi-ethnic state bound by emotional attachment, has been shattered beyond recognition. The demand for a separate Kuki administration is not a call for division, but a plea for justice, peace, and the protection of Kuki land and rights. For the future of Manipur, it is essential that both communities find a way to coexist peacefully and address the historical wrongs that have fueled the conflict. Without such a resolution, the state may continue to suffer from violence and unrest with no clear path forward. The disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in this article are solely those of the author and do not necessarily reflect the views of Zalengam Media. Subscribe to Zalengam Media for more updates and insightful articles.